Hey, Andy. Hello, everybody. Give me 1 second here. I had to log back into my damn account, Andy.
I couldn't find you.
You couldn't find me.
Testing, testing. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
good, good. Now I can. Yep.
Oh,
Let's fight over him.
we'll fight over him. I'll kick him back out. You put him back on.
Okay, we'll just keep doing that all night to piss him off.
Very,
Adios,
very fun.
Diego.
Very funny, guys. What's going on?
Okay, we're gonna have to work out how we're gonna do that.
Okay.
Oh man, I'll let you. I'll let you watch the door. Hey, doing, Hector?
Hola, Hector.
Robert.
Hola, Diego.
Hi guys.
Hello,
Hey,
Paula.
Paula.
How you been?
Hey, Paula.
Good.
Holy shit! You're gonna survive there, Andy.
It must be my mic. All I did is move something on the coffee table.
Oh man, it sounded like you just destroyed the whole damn room. Yeah, holy crap.
Sounds like you're moving furniture around or something. Damn.
Yeah, I told him that earlier, and he says all I did was move my coffee cup.
Yeah.
Well, Mike definitely works.
So, anyways, guys, the topic of tonight is going to be the banking issue.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, that's an O, isn't it? Isn't it, Hector?
must be something new.
Something new? Well, if you've been watching the news, it's certainly not new.
No, it's not.
The only thing that I ask that everybody watch that we don't seem like we're giving anybody advice. I will be limiting the panel. I will be shuffling people around depending on who wants to come up. And I asked that everybody, as before, be respectful in the chat. Most people that's on the panel already know that. Take the mic out of the coffee cup, huh? I don't think my mic's in the coffee cup, guy.
No, I think he's talking to
Oh.
Andy.
And YouTube's been acting up weird lately, so we're going to have to kind of watch that.
Yeah, the mic out of the coffee cup comment was probably meant for Andy.
Gotcha. I'm a little slow. Off my meds, so I'm a little slow. So I'm kind of waiting for one more for Brian, but he'll be around here in a little bit. He said he's going to be running a little late, so that's fine.
Yeah, I might be in a meeting until a little bit from now.
Yeah. I guess I'll start it off and I'll kind of lead it in, Diego. What's your take on what's going on with the financial markets?
It's a mess. We talked about this yesterday, and I'm a little surprised. Yesterday I told you that the Mexican peso experienced a huge dip.
Yep.
And it went from 19 to 1860. And then today, and I don't know what the reasoning is behind it, it's back to 1901. So if somebody can explain that to me, I would love to hear it.
Well, I can give a little insight, which I find quite disturbing and humorous at the same time. All the banks that they had stopped trading on, all of a sudden, magically, their numbers are all going up today during trading, with no change in sentiment or market or anything like that. So take that for what you will, but not that there's not a few that are still in hot water, but somebody has certainly stepped up to the plate and shoveled a bunch of money into a few of them. Who and what, where, who knows? Guess, speculate all you want. Am I buying it? Not at all.
No.
I think there's definitely some funny business going on there, which we all know that's been for a long time. The and even the dollar itself, Diego, has been bouncing around. So I'm not surprised to see, moves in other currencies.
Yeah,
You know,
well, right now everything is connected to the US dollars. So
yeah, and that's
whatever happens where I live is a direct result of something that happened in the US.
yeah.
There's no doubt about that. But connecting the dots becomes more and more difficult.
Well, I watched a video of a meeting that the feds had with the Treasury Department and a bunch of other political, politicians or whatever, with ties back into the finances and stuff. And this isn't a surprise to them. They knew it. Why the whether the regulatory commission didn't catch this, which they should have, is beyond me. Because as far as I know, it's 3 that are for sure down right now, and then credit Seuss or Susie or however you want to say it. I've heard it said both ways. Is looking like it's not going to make it either. So,
Yeah.
And even though they're not the biggest banks, that combined, they're not exactly the smallest either. And as we know, I don't know if we all did, but anybody's been paying attention, seen Biden's speech, all 2 minutes of it, 3 minutes of it, or whatever it was. And his claim was that he was going to guarantee all depositors their money.
Yeah.
Not the investors, but the depositors, which, like an SVB, I can't quote on this, but the going thing is around 90% of all their depositors were over the $250,000 FDIC insurance limit. And in this meeting, they're speaking of, as far as the FDIC goes, which is paid supposedly by the bank fees, which we all know gets passed on to the people who actually use the bank for services, unless you're one of the big players. They only have like $2 billion. If Brian was here, he could bring up the site and stuff that's got what the FDIC has to say about it. It isn't quite what Biden said. So who's telling the true thing, or what's true or not? Who knows?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I know 2 billion sounds like a lot,
It's
but
not.
it's not. It's some change.
Yeah, I want to say Signature has an outlay of like 500 billion.
Yeah,
Or, I
and
mean,
2 billion. 2 billion is absolutely nothing. This
Yeah.
sounds to me like we're gonna forgive your student loan scheme.
Yeah.
This is what it sounds like to me. Something he's promising that he cannot possibly keep.
Well,
And then it raises another question. Why would you bring down banks only to prop them back up? What would be the possible purpose behind that?
yeah, what's it going to do? Well, they're not really propping the bank up. The banks are going to go down.
Mm-hmm.
They're just bailing out depositors, which in this case are large ones. It isn't, Joe Mom and Pop, target of this, even though, thankfully they are going to be hopefully made whole on it. But it's the big ones, it's like kind of like Oh, well, let's see. One of them said that they called the investors in Israel, and they pulled out millions and millions of dollars. And then SEB is heavily Asian investments. TikTok being one of them, which, take that for what you will. I myself find it very unimpressive, considering what exactly what that thing is. Then various other hedge funds and stuff like that. It isn't people like us that's really any consequence to it. They say, well, we don't want a bank run, we don't want this, we don't want that. Well, if you ain't got hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars deposited in these banks, you're no consequence to them. A few $1,000s is not going to break any bank. Even in conjunction with everybody. So I'm not sure how they intend on handling that with what Biden said and with what the FDIC says. It doesn't jive. The thing that kind of pisses me off, though, is in that meeting with the FDIC, they knew about this. They absolutely knew that these banks were overextended with bonds, that very, very, very risky ones. Buying them when the interest rates are low, and as interest rates goes up, those bonds lose value. So we as the average people are going to be again likely, much to the claims of Biden, having it shoved up our ass again.
Yeah.
Because no matter how you look at it, there's no free ride. Either they're going to put it out and just get them digital, or going to fire up the printing presses.
Yeah,
And
it is a very scary situation. Let me give you an insight to my situation. So, I bank in the U.S.
right,
and there's a good reason for that, because when I work, I'm technically, you can call it a contractor or freelancer, whatever name you want to use. And there's one bank that specializes in catering to those people, and they're called Payoneer. So you can be living wherever the hell you want on the world, and you can have an account with them. The reason why you can is because they do not allow private deposits. Whatever deposits are coming in are coming from companies. So if they were to shut down that bank, I mean, if I guess it's called, I guess you could call it a bank, even though they use a different bank to do their business with. But if they shut that down, you will not just affect the lives of Americans. On the contrary, you will literally affect the lives of millions worldwide. So I guess the question becomes, how much damage do they want to do?
well, and there's the rub. Dan, have you seen any effects down there?
Yeah, it's through talking to my son, he's very concerned because of what he does in his businesses, because we're already been financially feeling it as a result of many things in New Zealand, but it's really affecting businesses here with what's going on with the bank systems in the States. All of his colleagues that are here are watching everything like a hawk because they're concerned about how it's going to affect the way that they run their businesses. And a lot of them are trying to figure out where the benefit is really, like what's really going on. What was the deal that's being made in the background? They're trying to understand why it looks like they're playing a political game again, with the financial structure of things. And let's face it, all countries are feeling this because inflation's crazy high. And so that's going to affect supply and demand for all businesses. So people are very concerned. I was talking to my old boss yesterday, just walked into the gas station, and it was like, do you see what's happening in the States with the closure of banks and stuff? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, thank God I got out when I did, because he closed his business because it was only a medium-sized business. So he's just a standard worker now, and he's quite grateful, but he's very concerned for many of his other family members. So yeah, it's having an impact. There's a lot of worry out there.
Well, and that brings another aspect to it too, with the side effect of that is small businesses. And if they use these banks and they're tied to them, not having access to even, a credit line or their own funds, you're running in, how do they pay their employees? How do they pay their bills? How do they, buy the materials they need to manufacture or they're manufacturing, even if it's a restaurant? Somebody said this, and I think it's very insightful when they talk about, they're worried about bank runs and all this stuff. And I'm not saying people should panic or whatever, because I have some ideas of what they're actually doing, and I'll get into those a little bit later on. But the statement was, you can leave your money in the bank, or you can take your money out of the bank. But there's outcomes here. If you leave your money in the bank and nothing happens, you're fine. If you take your money out of the bank, nothing happens, you're fine. But if you leave your money in the bank and stuff goes sideways, then what? If you're going to hedge your bets and protect yourself, and I'm not saying that cash is the best option either. I really don't know what the answer to that is, and nor would I try to give one. So don't take anything I say as advice, because I wouldn't even begin to try to give anybody advice about what to do about this stuff. People's retirements, their normal banking, businesses with their credit lines and being able to cover wages and being able to cover other stuff. I'm sure there's a lot of people on edge right now.
Okay, so I'm going to chime in on that. My wife right now has my debit card. Every day, we're withdrawing the maximum we can from the ATM. If the proverbial shit hits the fan and they close down my bank account in the US, we would essentially be broke. So I am also not giving financial advice. YouTube don't even dare to suggest that, I'm doing that. But for me, I'm pulling out as much cash as I can, because I can see the cash in my drawer and nobody can take it away from me.
Yeah, and I can't blame you, Diego. There's the rub, and a lot of banks, like in the areas I'm in, small towns, are regional banks. They're not big banks.
Well, here's a struggle for you, Robert. Most small towns in New Zealand do not have a bank. They run everything through ATMs, both deposit and withdrawals. So if you have a business issue, it's dealt with online or on the phone, which is a pain in the ass for a lot of people.
I bet. Well, and another one, I've heard that a lot of ATMs now are changing over to only banking hours, which is a little inconvenient. Let's just use that word. So, you know, if this just happened because of people's ignorance, which, you know, as they say, you know, don't attribute anything to malice when, you know, ignorance certainly will fit the bill. In this case, you know, it could go either way. The people running a few of these, the risk managers, weren't exactly the most qualified. Because of, as we know, a little bit of virtual signaling going on and things like that, which I'm not going to delve into too deeply because it's not the topic we're on, but it certainly played a factor in it. But if they're doing that to where they limit to banking hours only, or in Diego's case, where they're limiting what you can take out per day or things like that, it kind of leaves people in a lurch, you know. And I do know that any bank you go in nowadays, you know, you can't just walk into a bank and say, I want to take out $10,000. They will literally say no. And if you do, well, you'll have to come back the next day because they don't have it. I've actually run into that myself.
And that's the thing, particularly down here. Because I'm banking in the U.S., the only thing I have is in essence a debit card, so an ATM card, and the maximum withdrawal on that is right now the current exchange rate. Call it somewhere around $400. That's it.
Yep.
So you have to do it in piecemeals. You cannot go to a bank here with I cannot go to a bank here with my card and say, give me all my money, because it's not the bank's money that I'm going into. So
Right.
that doesn't work. But people don't realize how many. I mean, I am literally talking about millions of people that rely on the same system.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and as I said, even if you have a local branch, like even my bank, I can't walk in and say I want to take out $10,000. It's the access to cash nowadays. They're pushing more and more people for plastic and debit and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And BZ, I know you said you're still confused. Do what you think you should do. How's that? Whatever makes you feel the safest, you do that. Because at the end of the day, you're the one that has to decide. But as another thing that I learned from watching that meeting with the Federal Reserve and the Treasury head, was that the cash availability compared to actual currency outlet is only like 0.5%. So they literally may not have enough cash if people start pulling their money out, even the smaller guys.
No, it's not literally. I can guarantee you, I mean, without a shadow of a doubt, they do not have enough cash. They just don't. A run on the banks would be devastating.
Well, yeah, and that I think that's, you know, the thing is, it's not only going to cause that, but it's also going to reveal how screwed this whole system is at the moment. Which, you know, is it shocking? Yes. Is it surprising? No. It's just cycle after cycle. It seems like this is an ever-playing, you know, game that's been done throughout history when it comes to the finances.
I think a run on the banks is inevitable.
I do too.
I believe that as well. And Fry said we need to run on the banks. I agree with that. Please wait until I have my cash out. Thank you.
Me too. But just the
The,
mistrust in the government in the last 2 years, which is higher than I think it's ever been. And then you start seeing things like Biden coming out at 9 o'clock, barely able to walk and speak, trying to
Mhm.
reassure people first thing on a Monday morning. People are going to look at this, go, what the hell is going on here? Even if you weren't paying attention to the situation, you're going to say to yourself, something big is going down here. This guy never staggers out for a news conference until the middle of the afternoon.
well, that's very true. And I want to address something that Gerald's saying in the chat. And yes, people, I am reading the chat as much as I possibly can at the moment. Leaving in the too big to fail banks, yeah, that's not a bad thing, but at the same time, it promotes consolidation, and we all know where that leads.
To fail banks in
It's,
Canada have no issues seizing people's money, do they?
No, and that's another rub. I myself personally think that it very much is going to be used as a tool to bring in digital currency and digital IDs and all that shit.
Yeah, because it looks like they're trying to centralize.
Yeah, that's exactly. Well, it's not. Doesn't look like it. That's what's happening.
That is what they're doing. And Fry, you don't have to feel sorry. I've already taken steps to take as much cash out as I can. So we're going to be okay. Whatever happens is not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to happen within the next few weeks, I'm guessing.
Hey, Ernie.
You doing,
How's it
Art?
going, boys?
It's going. How you doing?
I'm all right.
Hey,
Chilling.
Have you been listening?
Yeah, I was just I should probably turn it down on the TV out in the living room. Just give me a sec.
All right. Well, I don't know about that, Gloria. How are you causing a crash when we aren't the big players? I mean, Peter Thiel literally told all of his investors to pull their money out. That's what started this whole thing. So you're talking people with multi-millions, not the person that has, a few thousand or even a few tens of thousands. You're talking big players.
busy the small local banks here in New Zealand. Here's an example. They pretty much don't exist anymore. There's no local banks in small towns. So that's already happening.
And that's part of what's happening here is it's going to push more towards consolidation. Even if you move to the bigger banks.
Did Arnie say Chile? Aha.
How do you change the picture on the avatar here in Restream?
Go over to your thing and click the little three dots over on the left-hand side.
Little three dots on the left-hand side. Okay. Change avatar. Okay, got it. Thank you.
So, whether, timing for people getting their stuff is one thing. And I have to agree with Fry here. The crash has kind of already happened. Now it's just going to be a matter of the fallout. I mean, the Monday morning opened up and you had many financial systems, banks, even they weren't really banks. They were more investment managers, falling anywhere between 30 and 75%, and then they stopped trading on them. And 2 days later, all of a sudden they're magically going back up. To me, that smells a little fishy because the public sentiment hasn't changed any. But I do believe this is a push for consolidation. And the next thing that we're going to see is we're going to fix everything and we'll bring in a digital ID. And I've already heard it bandied about that, they want to have another Jubilee like they did back in the Great Depression. But see, most people don't know what that means. And what that means is they'll excuse the debts of all these big financial systems, but not the little guy, not with your mortgage, not with your student loans or whatever else. That's not the way it's going to work. It'll just be the big guy so they can start doing this all over again. And I myself, and it'll be the working class who pays for it again. One way or another. Always is, always will be. When Biden came out and said, well, not one taxpayer dollar is going to go through that. Well, horse shit. It always boils back to the little guy.
Yeah.
Whether you pay it in bank fees or you pay it in taxes, you're still going to pay for it. Same thing. Okay, Dan, you have a good one, guy. The thing of it is as with Dan, we're seeing effects across, not just here, but in every country. It's like, what's your take on this, Arn? What do you think?
Oh, typical when everyone says conspiracy theory, wait a year. I've been saying this for 5 years. This was coming. This was no surprise, even before the mandates and everything. This whole thing was coming. And, people that I talked to with capital and all that kind of stuff, I was like, start diversifying that capital and moving it into tradable assets. I've been saying this for 5 years. It's no surprise to me. It's kind of, satisfying, so to speak, knowing that, I've been considered a Looney Tune for so many years. And here we are.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm really kind of getting tired of being called a conspiracy theorist, or as you said, a Looney Tune or whatever, for having a little forethought as to what's going on. That doesn't impress me at all. I don't deal in actual, pie in the sky ideas. This is reality happening. And anybody that says this isn't happening isn't paying attention.
I will say this about Canada, though. Like when you guys went down in 2008, Canada was, I think they run banking a little different up here for some reason. I don't know why. But Canada is probably a little further away. They're big banks here. Mostly because the government really controls the banking out here. Yes, they're part of the Federal Reserve System, but the Canadian government is, really the owners of our banks. Hence why they can pull the plug on customers as they see fit. They just tell the banks, you got to shut this guy down. It's done.
Right. Well, and, I agree with you. You guys, the system's a little different than ours, but I am still of the mind that this is going to affect everybody. It isn't just going to be here in the U.S. I can see a concerted effort with the IMF and all them wanting to go to strictly digital currency. And and I've heard this, everybody says, well, go to Bitcoin, go to Ethereum, go to this, go to that. Well, when you live in a country, the only thing they really got to do is make it illegal to trade in that. And you can say bye-bye to your Bitcoin and your Ethereum and everything else. If not, you run the risk of becoming, a resident of one of the facilities they have. We all know where that leads. So to say they can't do it is kind of a misnomer, because they most certainly can. And to think that other countries aren't going to be in conjunction with that is foolish, because the only way they're going to make that to work is if all countries do it.
I'm going to pop out and pop back in so I can change my avatar here. I'll be right back.
Yeah, you do your thing. What was you said something earlier, Andy, about them limiting something up there? I can't remember what it was. Do you remember?
I was talking earlier about the comment I saw from on Twitter from Canadians saying that they That was the one about the ATMs only being open during banking hours.
Oh, okay.
But I hadn't seen that anywhere else in the world, just on the Canadian Post.
Yeah. Which to me seems kind of, a
Very
little
strange. Very
convenient.
strange. Yep.
Banking hours is usually in the meantime when most average people are working. So how do you access your money if
Exactly.
you want cash? You can't. How many people is that going to limit? It's going to limit quite a few.
You guys hear the news today about Credit Suisse? Another one on the vine.
Yeah. Yep. I actually had mentioned that earlier, and
Yeah.
that's what I was talking about. With even the ones right now, I think it's at 4 if Credit Suisse goes down, or
Remember what I said yesterday? Federal the deposit insurance basically spent 92 their total net worth, and that was 92 billion.
yeah,
And they spent it all on the Bay Area Bank. So now what?
well, and that's
Print
the
more
thing.
money? They're just going to print more money. Here's the stupid thing: they're just going to print more money, and as a result, you know what happens after that? That's how they're gonna. That's how they're gonna figure they're gonna solve the problem. Just print more, print more, print more, and then inflation takes over, and on it goes. First World War. This is pre-First World War scenario going on again in 2023, but different tech.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I said earlier it's the same game. It's been the same game throughout history.
This reminds me so much of when my grandmother passed away and we were cleaning the house out and found money hidden everywhere, including in the freezer. And when my mother passed away, we found money hidden in bookshelves. They were big on having lots of cash and groceries stockpiled in closets. I think they were still shell shocked from the Second World War. It's basically coming back to the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the thing of it is, even with cash, that's no guarantee, because if they go and fire up the printing presses, per se, no matter how you look at it, it devalues the paper you have. I mean,
but it's better than having absolutely nothing. Someone mentioned,
Andy, I won't disagree with you one bit in the least.
Someone mentioned earlier, if they shut down the banks, you have nothing. Like Diego said, if they lock his bank, he's broke. He's got no access to anything.
Yeah.
At least if you put some cash away, even if you don't use it for proper transactions, you can trade for something.
Yeah, and which adds to the whole thing with banks now wanting to report on any transaction done in cash over $600, and that's insane.
That's a trip to Costco.
I mean,
Exactly.
Shit. Yeah.
I wanna just grab Swerton here. He's saying, how do you print more money if it all goes to digital? That's exactly what they do, except that we don't get any access to it. They just bail out their buddies. That's irrelevant. That's an irrelevant point. They just print more money and bail someone out. They always bailed out Wall Street. They've never bailed out Main Street. So who gives a shit about Main Street as far as they're concerned?
They're not technically printing. They're not technically printing more money. They're
Exactly.
They're just adding another zero to what they already.
They're adding zeros to the database. That's it.
Yeah. So, and I agree with you, Andy. I mean, if you have no cash, and I wish Dan was up here because he could actually reinforce that sentiment when they had the hurricane or the cyclone, as they call them. They're without the ability for them to use their cards because there was no internet access or power. They had no way of buying shit.
Well, on a short-term example of that, when we had our big power outage in the whole eastern half of the U.S. and Canada, what was that, 15 years ago? 20
Northeast?
years ago?
Yeah.
I was up helping my brother build his house. Small town, quite rural. Power went out, so he had no running water because everyone's on a well. We were able to access a natural spring for good drinking water, but I was the only one that had cash in my pocket. The two stores in town were quite willing to sell you stuff if you had cash. I was at the time one of the few people that used cash for anything. Everybody just used a debit card, even then. So having some cash on hand, even if it gets you through the short term, I think is a good thing to have.
Oh, for sure. You wouldn't hear me poop on that at all.
Because if the massive inflation hits, it's going to devalue that cash pretty quickly anyway.
Yeah, for sure. But that's better than having no ability for any, without the ability to purchase anything at all. That's the big rub. There was somebody said that every fiat currency, NB said this, every fiat currency that has ever existed in history has eventually failed, and the USD will be no different. Yeah, correct. A lot of people don't understand what fractional reserve lending means.
They don't do fractional reserve lending anymore. They just print.
Yeah, well, an example, they're supposed to only be legal out to like 9-1.
Right.
And in 2008, 2009, they were leveraged 56-1, and they still failed. I mean, if I could change every dollar in my pocket and loan it out 56 times, I'm pretty sure I'd be fairly well off in pretty short time. But in their case, no, they just more and more and more and more. And what most people don't understand is in a fractional reserve system, when they talk about national debts and all this stuff, it's impossible to ever pay it off because there literally is not enough cash. You can't create one apple, split it 9 times, and have each of those people bring it back an apple because they don't exist.
Well, that's kind of the
that's
theory.
How they create the money out of thin air.
That's the theory behind the sovereign movement, is the consent idea, right? Contract law. Everything's based in contract law, right?
Yeah.
So they shadowed the population to pay taxes, never really encouraged entrepreneurialism because, entrepreneurs can pretty much figure out ways of, avoiding Mr. Taxman, right? Made the companies who are legally liable to make sure they deduct the taxes off the workers, right? And the idea of your treasury in the US and our finance minister in Canada are nothing more than bankruptcy agents for the real owners of the debt.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Hence why all your letterhead on your anything to do financial has all capitalized letters. That's converting human beings into corporations.
Well, I have another problem, and the problem I have is with people that always say, "Oh, diversify, buy gold, buy silver." Okay, so let's go to the situation where the shit hits the fan. Are you going to go into a grocery store to buy a loaf of bread with a bar of gold, and what exactly are you going to get in return?
Can I answer
therein
that?
lies the rub.
Can I answer that? It's not so
By all
much
means.
the gold. It's not so much the gold. The gold is it's the diversify in what they call tradable assets. So someone said in the chat earlier, buy drums of oil. That you can trade for things. You can trade for services or goods, right? It's going back to the old barter days, right? Currency is going to be something that's tradable. You don't buy a house, you buy land because you can trade against it, right? That's what they're talking about when they say diversify. And then it's not saying taking all of your entire portfolio and putting it into that, but having a good majority of it. So, and also putting your money and planting it all over in different countries, not having all your money in one country, right? If one country folds, then you got money sitting somewhere else, that kind of thing, right? But it's called tradable assets. So yeah, you don't trade your gold. Your gold is kind of like the parked money, and you have your silver, where it's the old days where they would just peel off a piece of silver off of a coin or something. That's worth something, right? That's kind of the concept behind that. So the silver is what you walk around day to day with.
Swerton, that's a really good question. I don't know how to answer that one. The idea of what you're saying there, and I agree. If it's long term and you're putting away to try and hold that value, yeah, that's a smart idea. But might I also project history here? When after the crash of 1929 happened, and the government here decided to go back to the gold standard, they literally made it illegal to hold physical gold. You had to sell it back to the government.
That's the only one. That's why silver is good, because the government can't come after that. It's like that in Canada. I don't know what it's like in the US, but in Canada, they can't touch silver.
Well, I don't know. I have no idea whether that's the case in the US or not. And truthfully,
They could,
as much as
they could.
Let me ask you this, Arn. Has your current administration exactly been abiding by laws?
Ours?
Yeah, exactly. You see my point.
Yeah.
I don't think, in my opinion, there isn't any safe bet per se. That's why I say everybody do
In the
what-
monetary system, there isn't, for sure. Absolutely not. There's nothing safe.
No. So in that case, I mean, the idea is sound, but I can also, I can play devil's advocate on it too, but we don't know. None of us know. That's why I say everybody do what you feel makes you the most comfortable, because none of us are going to be comfortable for a while. I guarantee you that. I just hope it doesn't play out worst case scenario. That just would really suck.
Well, the whole thing is as society collapses and crumbles, all this moral stuff that we all live by, that all goes out the window. It's survival after that. So I have no moral issue of survival. And when it comes down to it, it's survival.
Well, that's going to
thank
boil
God-
down to communities.
Thank God for my old way of living, because I have that skill set with a lot of brain memory on it. So I'm not too concerned about it. I'll do what I got to do. I'm not afraid of consequences when it comes to survival, because that's what they're forcing society to do, is survival. So most people will just bury themselves in the sand and say, nothing's really going on here. It is what it is. That is what it is concept is really infiltrated society. And it's actually a psyop word, because it's saying it doesn't matter. Do whatever it is. It is what it is.
Well, that's like
And
the
I'm not-
whole conspiracy theory or conspiracy theorist. That in itself was a psyop.
Mhm.
That label. I mean, that happened during the JFK thing. So yeah, you're correct in that aspect. In my opinion, where the rubber is going to meet the road, and it's just my opinion, but I wouldn't be a bit shocked if those in the upper echelons of the financial industries, being IMF and close to them, that they didn't allow this shit to happen or whatever to bring about the whole push. They're going to say, well, we're going to save you all. You're going to have this little digital card and we're going to give you UBI, and everything's going to be unicorns and rainbows. Because frankly, unless you have a strong, tight local community who has the abilities to manufacture and process a lot of the goods and stuff that we need, you're screwed, because you're not going to be able to lone wolf it. That idea is absolutely it's a non-starter. It won't happen. Even if you have the ability to farm and do whatever, you still have to buy feed. You still have to buy tools. You still have to repair stuff. All kinds of things. And most people in these places, they don't have the skill sets for those kinds of things. Not in small communities anyway. That's been lost.
That's why
They
they
don't,
develop
Gary?
cities.
What's going on tonight?
Oh, well, you heard it.
Look,
If
look
you're
at
listening.
here.
Oh,
I
we're
think
listening in. We're listening in.
I think your truck tipped over there, Gary.
What's
That
your
what?
take on it?
I think your truck tipped over on its right side.
Am I showing funky on the screen again?
Yep.
That's all right. We
Yeah,
can deal with
you're driving in a rollover.
Oh
kinda
my
cool-
goodness. I'm being creative. I want to make sure people see me going down the highway.
it.
I always thought you were an accident waiting to happen.
What's your, if you've been listening, Gary, what's your take?
Well, we've had this conversation in either your panel or other panels about digital currency. I mean, if you really think about the digital currency right now, that little card that's in your wallet is basically, there's a chip in there. You put it into the slot, you might have to put a PIN number in, and all of a sudden somebody gets paid. There is no cash really moved via hand. But, there is already been that digital kind of currency transferring one way or the other. It's just that all of a sudden, some way or somehow, where you purchase something the money gets to them and away it goes. But with what is happening now with the banks, and I don't know if they really actually mentioned what banks this is all happening in, but yeah, it is something that a lot of people should be concerned about. If the banks all completely
Yeah,
shut
for
down,
I want to, Gerald.
go ahead, Robert.
I was just addressing Gerald real quick. You're the exception, not the rule, though, Gerald. Certainly the exception. I would bet there ain't one in 10,000 people that can say that they can do that.
That's why cities were created, because then you get to control the herd, right? The vast majority of the population live in cities.
Right. And more people are trying to live more near cities or living in suburbs where like somebody like me, I don't care if I'm out in the middle of nowhere on 100 acres and my nearest neighbor is 300 miles away. I could survive being out there on my 100 acres, no problem. Because if I need to have food, I know how to survive to keep my family fed. Now, there might be some things that might be a lot easier to be like near a general store, to get something. But for the most part, I can survive and protect my family at the same time, where a lot of people, if the stores do not have food and nobody can have the money to buy food, basically, in like you're saying, Arnie, that if you're living in a city, they control the herd. They control everything that happens in the city.
Well, even though still in a rural area, we're talking economies of scale here now.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the idea like the barter system, in a small local area, yeah, that's fine. But being that things are so consolidated nowadays, even to the point, like even with farmers and stuff, like up here, most farms are owned by corporations now.
Yeah. Even your mega farms.
Yeah. That in itself is a big part of why, the idea, well, we're going to go back to like we did in the 1850s or whatever. No, that's not going to happen.
Right.
Now, granted, could a decent sized small community with a diversified, skill set of people do well? Yeah, sure. But how long do you think governments are going to allow that? Because you're going to have to trade between yourselves. And, it's just like when you have a vegetable stand where they were pissing and moaning about farmers not paying taxes because they sold a few damn vegetables.
Right.
It's just like the days with illegal alcohol and the revenuers. Is that what we're going to be with food now? Is that what you're going to be with goods?
Well, in the big communities, they could control that, but when you're again talking rural, there isn't enough of them to control someone in the middle of nowhere doing business on a trade barter scenario, right? That's yeah, cities, yes, because they got everything there, right? All the infrastructure is in the cities. So that's
there-
really the
but there-
key.
But there are no local tradesmen anymore that can do what they did in the 1850s. You don't have a baker, you don't have a butcher, you don't have anyone raising cattle in your neighborhood anymore. You don't have chickens, you don't have just the basics for a basic barter system to survive anymore. You don't have a local sawmill if you need lumber to put up a shed or a small house. That's all gone overseas, basically.
Well, yes and no, Andy. I'm going to kind of slightly disagree on that. If I go up north, I can go to Crivets, and there is a place there that does make lumber there. If I want to buy true 2x4 lumber, I can get it in a 2x4. Not like the stuff that's mass manufactured that it's only like what, 1 3/4 by 1 3/4, something like that. But I still can buy lumber from certain areas as long as you know where to buy it at.
I've got a local lumber sawmill not far from the house here, but he sells to artisans where you go in and pay $1,000 for a piece of walnut or $500 for a piece of maple. And he's got plenty of business for someone that wants to make instruments or furniture. He's not sawing up spruce and pine into 1x6s or 2x4s.
Oh, sure he will. If things go hit the wall, damn right he's going to. He's going to have to diversify because he's a niche business, though.
But the elites aren't going anywhere. We are. His customer base isn't going anywhere. We are.
Yeah,
and the
that's-
other
that's
thing
another-
is too on that is like, okay, because I know the bartering system was brought up. There are people that do barter, you know, out in the country yet. I'm not saying not everyone barters, but there are people that are bartering, and it's like, okay, if the banks shut down, what is going to be the next bartering item? Is it going to be copper? Is it going to be aluminum? Maybe some gold, things that's got some major value. That maybe something like eggs is a value to one person, and in return, maybe a chicken that they butchered within a few months that they barter on. That's not really ever gone.
No, it hasn't ever gone.
Yeah,
But
you know, I think we've
lived in a
delving
society of abundance forever, and we've gotten lazy as a society in the Western world.
We've been too
Thank God.
dependent. That's the thing.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Because like in
Well, what I mean
1850, how many people could actually cook on a wood stove? And, you know, like actually boiling your water or baking the bread in a wood stove. Not many people have that experience of learning how to do that.
Yeah, I haven't sewn any of my own shirts lately. You know what I mean? You couldn't just go to the store and buy a shirt. The woman of the house made
Yeah,
the
of
dresses, and from friggin' grain sacks sometimes they made work clothes.
When I was a little boy, I grew up on a farm, and we were Eastern European. Our family acquired the property when they came to Canada. They gave us undeveloped land, said, do what you want, it's yours. But everybody around us all had milking machines, big operations. Man, I picked rocks. I'm 56 years old, and I picked rocks as a kid. The neighbors were doing it on machines, right?
Yeah,
So
I know exactly how you feel, Arnie.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And then I moved to the city and got lazy, you know, because I could just go to Safeway and buy food. I could go to the lumber store and buy lumber. You know, I used to go in the back bush and cut my own wood. Right. It was like, you know, but I don't know if I'm old.
Well-
I don't know if I can do that nowadays. I might if I had to survive, but that muscle memory's there. I've done it before. That's how I grew up.
I mean, I've made my own lumber up on our own land. I mean, it's like I found a good, nice piece of wood or a part of a log that I did, and then just take the chainsaw and start going to town, you know? So, I mean, it's like I grew up like that, and I mean, granted, I'm not up to your age yet, but I mean, if I still had to learn how to survive, a lot of these people that moved away from the farm when I was a younger kid, because I definitely grew up like that, where, you know, people had better milking machines and we still had an older style milking machine. And basically pipeline was like the thing that was there. And it still is today now with these mega farms. But I mean, it's like, go out there, give it a hard day's work, go pick rocks. I mean, there was only 4 of us in our family. Go out and pick rocks. You had to get your hands dirty. You got the scrapes, the bumps, you know, and everything. But it's like nowadays, a lot of these people that moved away from the farm, they're going to be hurting, because if the stores don't have food and they can't buy it because there's no banks there, there's going to be people really just sitting there just going nuts.
Well, then that's a point I was going to make. And I want 2 points about something you said, Gary. You know, you said about going up with your chainsaw and doing this and doing that. In theory, that's great, but who makes the chains? Who
Yeah.
makes the oil? Who makes the fuel?
Right.
You're talking stuff where that's not stuff that you can manufacture yourself.
Well, the gas you could if you truly wanted to. It's just the oil you would have
Yeah.
to find.
You
well,
convert
yeah, good
convert
luck
your
with that.
vehicles to biofuels. I mean, that stuff goes on up here all over the place. All the little hippie communities in Canada, that's all they do, right? They screw around
Yeah,
with
but you're
cars.
still never going to, as an individual, manufacture enough to sustain a lifestyle that we're used to today at all.
Well, there it is, the rub. It is the lifestyle. We're going to have to. It's forcing us to actually, you know, get simple again. We're a false dichotomy of sophistication. In reality, it makes us weak. At the end of the day.
Reality check here. Do you think it's going to get to that point?
Oh, absolutely. For the short term.
I don't, Andy. I don't know, and I really wouldn't speculate on that at the moment.
I see where everybody's going, but I'm hoping it against hope that it doesn't come to that point.
Yeah, and I agree with you.
Well, if we keep the idiot that's into the residency right now, I think it would if he ends up going for another 4 years. Because look where we're heading now.
Oh, please, blasphemy. I'm going to be talking about snow in a second if you don't stop.
Bring it. I'm on my way home.
I mailed you 4 tons of snow, Diego, to see how well your roof holds up. You should have it in 2 days.
Yeah, well, thank you.
I really go ahead.
I was going to say, look, I think what a lot of people forget is that, well, let me talk about myself. Why not? I'm as good an example as any. I grew up in big cities, and I live in a big city. In fact, I live in the desert where nothing grows. How the heck am I supposed to prepare? I mean, first of all, I'm lacking all the skills to grow anything. And even if I had the skills to grow something, which I could easily acquire, I don't have the land to do it on. So, in other words, if that scenario happens, people are screwed. And I don't care if you were brought up in the country and you can fend for yourself. You are a small, very small minority.
Getting smaller by the year.
And let me, if I can play on that, Diego. Therein lies the rub. We aren't an island upon ourselves at all, no matter where we go in this day and age. As was mentioned earlier, you know, cities. Do you think governments are going to allow people to, you know, just farm anywhere, whatever, while they have their population in the cities, you know, wanting to literally bring back the, shall we say, the old ways of dealing with things? No, they ain't going to do that. They're going to come out and they're going to strong arm anybody who as much as grows a garden. And they can't say they don't do that, because they certainly did it in the UK and stuff. And even here, with people even growing small gardens, they call them victory gardens. And that was during World War II.
Last summer, the city was discouraging the people with their community gardens, which they've had forever.
Yep.
Why would the city be discouraging people from growing fresh fruit and vegetables?
Control.
Control and make sure you have to always buy from a store. Be dependent on a store.
Diego, if you have ways and means, there's a link I posted. Check that out.
It'll be in the YouTube chat.
Okay.
And for that matter, anybody. This is incredible tech that could be done on small scale. And very, very, very efficient, where you don't need a copious amount of energy to run it.
Thanks, Sonia. I appreciate it. And sorry if I'm not addressing everybody in the chat, but trying to concentrate on what we're talking about.
Does anybody in the chat want to step off for a few minutes? There's somebody trying to get on. I can't see who it is. And I can't backstage myself and open up a spot because I'm admin.
You can throw me backstage if you want.
Thanks, Gary. I'll get you right back up as soon as I can.
Yeah.
All right, Fry.
I don't see him.
Well, you got 6 on queue right now. Oh, no, you don't. Sorry. I'm looking at the wrong screen. Is somebody getting drunk on hand sanitizer or what?
I'm taking Polaroids.
Sniff that glue. Sniff it.
I guess if I backstage somebody, Robert, it doesn't open up a spot.
No. Gary, we're going to have to, if you're listening, we're going to have to take you right completely off, or if you can jump off. Restream doesn't allow more than 6 backstage, so.
You got 6 in
that's
the
a
back.
problem.
I could leave too. I'm okay if I'm glad I was able to make an
No, we
appearance.
got it.
anyways.
Gary,
Okay,
Gary,
Fry, go ahead.
Gary stepped out. Fry can try again.
Try again now, Fry. You know, the thing is, as I was saying before, people aren't an island to themselves. You know, it's like, you know, with Gerald, he's certainly ahead of the game. He's pretty much got his own little self-sustaining farm. But the problem with that is, we don't live in a society without the reach of the political environment, nor the cities. You know, most of us are within, 50 miles at best of any major city.
Out where you're from, yeah, we can be 200 miles away from a city, and lots of places.
I don't disagree with you. You know, I mean, I'm not saying there isn't places you couldn't go to do that, but as I said, I don't to think that we're an island upon ourselves. We're not. You know, and even if you could go out 200 miles somewhere in the middle of nowhere, you're still going to need resources out there to do what you're going to do. You know, unless you're going to live like a caveman, which I highly doubt. You still need access to the things that we take for granted nowadays. You know, something as simple as antibiotics, those types of things. You know, so it's a lot of ideas, yeah, for sure. But we are tied to today's technology and society in more ways than what we mostly realize. You know, I mean, simple stuff that we take for granted 150 years ago would have been a death sentence. Something as simple as a simple infection. You know, those are all things that come into play, and we're so disconnected now from as simple things as growing gardens. And like I said, unless you're like Gerald, there's a different mindset. We have no clue what it's like. It's just like sitting here on this panel and computers and everything. We take these communications or a lot of the things that's come about from tech for granted. Simple things, simple things as much as like a chainsaw. Go out and cut a bunch of lumber with nothing more than a handsaw.
We used to do that.
People used to do that for sure.
Yeah.
But it's not going to happen overnight. We're talking about things that the infrastructure for those types of things isn't there anymore. Like the idea of a local store. Well, yeah, that's great, but there is none. And if you move out 200 miles in the middle of nowhere, there's none there either. So you're not going to be able to just totally disconnect yourself from society. That'll never happen.
Well,
Yeah,
I think
but
that's
Robert, I do have the question there. You said, well, we don't live on an island. Fair enough. I'd like
Island to ourselves.
I'd like to believe that. I really do. But who's going to come, I don't know how to say this, to the rescue of those of us who have no clue?
Nobody.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And that's exactly correct.
mission accomplished.
If you have the skills, all your time will be spent just trying to make do for yourself. You won't have time to teach your neighbors how to teach them the skills that you know.
I've been
And that is-
preparing.
And that is my point, which means most of humanity, I mean, literally, is quite doomed if this happens.
So I want to jump in real quick. So this economic situation that you're seeing unfold right now is my wheelhouse. My dad wrote a book about this when I was young. It's called The Nature of Wealth. And he nailed the crash in 2008. So you have to just check out the book. It's free online. But what I want to point out is I'm not surprised that any of this is happening. The thing I'm surprised about is the people that are surprised that it's happening now and that are not prepared and haven't been preparing. I've been preparing for this for over 20 years. I put a wood stove in the house in 2009. Everything that I do, all these backup power systems, because our power is starting to fail now, and it just started about, 6 months ago. It's failed more in 6 months than it has the whole time since I built this house in 97. It's because they're overselling the grid. They're building too many houses for too many stupid people moving here, and the system's not up to par for it. And there's two economic systems that we're kind of based off of. We got Keynesian economics and Austrian economics. Look up the difference between the two, and we favor the Keynesian model more than the Austrian. So that's just the facts there. It's going to happen, and the run on the banks has already happened, okay? It's the media that's not telling you about it. And the run on the banks needs to happen because it exposes the fact that we live in a debt-based system. When you go take a loan out in the bank, you create that money into existence. That money
Yep.
does not exist until you go take the loan out. We live in a debt-based system, and then they charge interest on that. So you never get ahead. And we still do have fractional reserve banking as the model, Annie or Arnie. So that's that. When you said earlier we don't have that, we do. It's just in a digital format now instead of money or silver or physical money like paper money. All they do now is they just put it into existence and they funnel it around in a database. They actually float your money overnight to different countries that's in your bank account when you don't know about it. The money is used in so many different ways. I could just blow your mind if you ever want to talk about the monetary system. I'd love to bring my dad on this panel. But yeah, I've been researching this stuff for years. This is my wheelhouse. So is prepping. And the most important thing to prep for is your health. Now, Diego's talking about food. Start fasting. That's going to do two things right away. You're going to challenge your body. Your body's going to clean up anything that's going on. It will kill any cancer cells. Your body cleans house after 16 hours of not eating. 24, it really does. 2-day fast, boom, you can really get going. So when you fast, you don't need as much food. So guess what? You can't be controlled by the monetary system and the big pharma, the big food, big ag. The healthier you are, the less control they have over you, period. You can live out by yourself with a minimal amount of food if your body's in tune and can do it. That's why I've been doing these fasts. The other day I did a 2-day fast. I went on a 13-mile bike ride and I felt like I was 18 years old again. And I'm 52 according to the calendar. I could not have done that a year ago if I wouldn't start the clean eating lifestyle. So all these things are part of prep. Your health is the number one thing, not your bank account. That's secondary. Your health is number one when it comes to prepping.
Well, and I'll agree with you in aspects there, Fry. There's no doubt about that. That your physical well-being is definitely a number one, which really isn't what my topic is, but it's definitely relevant. As far as the other thing goes, I agree with you. Most people don't think about things outside of what's right in front of them. Nor do they think about tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. And the possibility therein lies. The other things that people have to look at, no matter what you've prepared, unless you're in the middle of nowhere and literally have a way of defending what you do have, worst case scenario, it doesn't matter what you've done, because no singular person is going to be able to defend themselves from a mob. And when people get hungry in a city, guess what happens?
Yep. It's going to be when people have nothing to lose, they lose it. That's why you should never mess with somebody that doesn't have kids. I don't have kids. So I want to bring this topic up. Most people don't know the real reason why Kennedy was shot. Does anybody here have any idea the real reason why Kennedy was killed, assassinated?
Yes.
All right, don't say it.
Yes,
Don't say it then. So I'll tell you why.
I know why.
Because he passed an executive order to print his own American-based money. And I actually have some in the house. I have a $2 bill, or no, it's a $5 American note. And it was backed by the American monetary system. He was wanting to get away from the Federal Reserve because he knows how dangerous it is. And look up The Creature of Jekyll Island. Read that book.
Yep.
And all these things will tell you. And all this stuff gets passed, like it was Christmas Eve, I think, when they passed the Federal Reserve. And then look up the people that died on the Titanic, okay? The Titanic plays into this whole thing. All the people that wouldn't sign this thing with the Federal Reserve, they all got put on the Titanic, and they all got put away, and they're gone. So all the big players back then that got on the Titanic, and the ones that knew that was going to happen, they jumped off, and they killed all the people that wouldn't play ball, and that's when the Federal Reserve was passed. It all is part of history that we need to know. This Federal Reserve is the worst. The big banking. Get your money out of the big banks. Local credit unions are okay, but stay away from the big banks, the Chases and all those guys. And yeah, the run on the banks has already happened. So talking about it right now, it's not going to change anything. It's not us that's causing the issue, the small people. It's the big players that are the problem.
Yeah, and I'll agree with you on that. It isn't the small people that are the problem with what's going on.
But it's the small people that pay for it, though.
Exactly.
Yes,
It's
and it always has been, always will be.
yeah.
If we keep with the same systems are going.
Yeah.
I
The biggest-
was going to say the same thing. It may be the big players that are causing it, but it's the small players that are paying the price.
Yep. They socialize the debts.
Main Street's always been the one to pay for the idiocracy of the elites.
Yep, they socialize the debts. That's us, and they privatize the profits. That's them. That's how the system works. And what's
Well, and
I just want to say
Go
this
ahead,
real
Fred.
quick. I've been telling people for 10 years or more, put your money in land. And look at how land, if you would have put your money in land 10 years ago, look where you'd be sitting right now. Get it out of those damn banks. but nobody listened. Even the one that used to live here, she had close to $1 million in the bank when she left 6 months ago. And I told her, buy land, buy land, buy land now. I told her to do that 5 years ago. And she just didn't want to listen. And now her $1 million
Hey,
bucks is not $1 million bucks
right,
anymore.
right. Let me interrupt you. I agree with you. I just don't want anything that's said on here to be construed as advice, people, because that will get me swatted. Even though what you're saying is absolutely true.
And your land,
You know-
your land is not worth anything if people don't have the money to buy it from you, or if the government wants to seize it from you.
Yep, but it's the best way to leverage your way out of this system. Gold and silver are not. And here, what Diego was saying earlier. All right, let's play this out. Ready, set, go, Armageddon. The system's already crashed. Okay, so get that out of your head. So stop saying when the S hits the fan. It's hit the fan. The system is doing its best to, just like the Wizard of Oz, keep the curtain up and keep the illusion going. But ready, set, go, Armageddon. It's even worse now. It's in your face. And then there's no, the internet's down, the power's out. How do you exchange food for whatever? Are you going to go up to your neighbors and hand them a 1 pound of gold? Are you going to go to Walmart? Walmart's not going to be open, by the way. And if it is, it's going to, they're going to have troopers there, and they're going to be handing out food, or they're going to put you in a cage. But anyway, you're not going to be able to trade with gold and silver unless it's small pieces. So if you have big blocks of gold and silver, just forget that. The way that you barter is with cigarettes, tobacco, beer, skills. I got a huge skill set that I've been building my whole life. I can do anything except your taxes. Keep me away from digits and numbers, and I can do anything for you. I can fix anything. I was a plumber, professional forklift driver. I used to drive trucks when I was a kid, tractors, combines. I can do anything I need to do. Keep me away from your money, because I can't add and subtract worth of crap.
So I'm a lost cause because I have a huge skill set, but I don't have the physical ability anymore.
That's why I was saying health is the most important thing. Because if you have your health, you can use your skill sets. Exactly. I'm not saying you're a lost cause, but you can fix that, Andy. Every day.
No, I can't.
Well, you can eat cleaner and you will feel better. These are facts. So that's all I'm saying. Your body can rebuild itself. Trust me, I am proof of it. And I could tell you the story one day, but this is not my panel. But your health is your wealth. Remember that. That is a fact. So if you have your health,
Okay.
you have your wealth.
All right. I want to get off that because that is delving into places I don't want to go on this panel, because basically it unfortunately, in the times that we live in, that can get me pinched. So I guess the aspects of what, to steer us back into what we're talking about. The idea that things have already played out. Has it not? I don't know. I do think this is going to be used for a concerted effort to move us to a different system, and not just consolidation of finances, but consolidation of governments. And we all know that's no big secret. They've as much as stated that's their goal.
Forget consolidation of government. That's not the aim. It's consolidation of the people that's the aim.
Yeah, for sure.
Bring everybody down to one level and make it cheap.
Yeah, and well, Diego, that's something that I'd like to point out that I've known and heard long ago. There's no way to bring the whole planet to first world level and conditions. It's just not possible.
That's not what I said.
No, but that's the end result. So the idea.
No, that's not the end result. I'm sorry. You completely misunderstood me.
Okay, then I guess I missed the boat then.
Okay, so let me try that again. And I have used this example several times before. I know Andy heard it. I think Fry may have heard it. But for argument's sake, I'm going to do that again. What are they doing? They're dividing us, right? We all agree on that. So what are they doing? Okay, so they have 100 buckets in front of them, and they go from left to right, and they go, okay, here are the gay people. We're going to put them in here. Here are the lesbians. We're going to put them in here. And then you go all through the entire LGBTQ whatever letters, and then you go, here are the people of color. We put them here, and then you divide them as much as you can. The last bucket you get to is the middle class. And then they go and pay attention again to the left. And they go, well, that bucket here, what is the minimum we can do for them to be happy? And that's what they get, the absolute minimum. And they go through all the buckets until they get to the middle class. And the middle class is the most expensive bucket because those people already have a certain lifestyle. So they're not going to be as cheap to pay off. So what is the solution? Well, let's get rid of them. Now, we just went through the pandemic, and that's a prime example. Let's lock everybody down for 2 years. What's the result? Small businesses closing down, people losing their job, the middle class shrinking. Now suddenly they're no longer in that basket, they're in the bucket, sorry. They're now in a different bucket that's much cheaper to control. And that's what they do. And at the end result they want is to end, for everybody to end up in the bucket furthest to the left. How they're going to do that, I don't know. But that's their aim, because that's the cheapest way to control everyone.
Diego, I didn't miss what you were saying then. If I'd have finished, you'd understood what I was saying is pretty much what you're saying. There's no way they can bring the populations in third world countries and stuff up to the level that we're at, or the poorest up to the level that we're at. So the only other alternative is to lower the standard of living for those in the first world nations down to third world level.
Yes, they want
Much
to kill
easier
the
to
middle
control.
class. Exactly.
Yes, kill the middle class.
Yep, and they're going to.
Which is essentially the same thing you just said, Diego.
Yep, Diego said it in a lot more sophisticated way, but it's divide and conquer, and that's exactly what's happening
for
now.
sure.
They're dividing us.
And Fry, you're absolutely right. That is the British model: divide and conquer.
Yep, and they also use "don't let any crisis go to waste," which is the Hegelian dialectic, and what it is the simple definition of it is they create the problem, we react, and they offer up the solution. So it's problem, reaction, solution, which is the Hegelian dialectic. It's one of their models that they use. So they get us to react, and guess what the solution is going to be? More control. No matter what we ask for help, we're going to be controlled more in every way.
Yep.
So that's this UBI stuff, universal basic income, the digital currency.
Yeah,
And the funny thing is, and it's not really funny at all. I mean, you know, I don't want to make a joke out of this because it is damn serious. They are going to use our crisis in order to convince us that they're doing something for us.
Yeah, right.
They always
And
do that.
you're very
They
correct.
create a problem and they become their own firefighter. They are the arsonist who then turns around and claims that, oh, look at me, I put out the fire.
Yeah, that's the Hegelian dialectic I was just talking about. They create the problem, we react, and they offer up the solution. It's just a classic, you know, it's classic what's going on right now. And this banking crash is just part of this stepping stone for them to get as far as they want. We had the vid, which was a complete controlled mechanism, and that was part of this reset. I don't want to call it a great reset. There's nothing great about it. It's bad. Let's call it the bad reset. That's what you're seeing happening right now. What phase are we in? Who knows? But the computer is being they're pushing the button right now. You know, that's the thing. And how fast is the computer going to reboot and what's it going to look like? We don't know.
Well, I just want to, if you're going to play word semantics, the word great in the context of that title has nothing to do with being good. Great meaning it's a shift, the great shift, right? The old order to the new order. That's what that title means.
Well, when I hear it, I hear people saying it's going to be great. I'm thinking, no, it's not going to be great. But I see what you're saying.
It's a
No,
paradigm
I mean,
shift. Of power.
Arnie is right in the sense, if you want to play semantics, then go for it. But
Yeah.
but I also see a movement that wants to be free, waving a white flag as giving up, and you want to play semantics with that, go right for it. But yeah, perception of the truth is in most cases, not all, but in most cases more important than the truth itself.
No, the truth of the matter is history is nothing new. League of Nations got stopped by the Second World War, right? And then the UN was established. And then in 2011 or 2001, you had the tragedy in New York. Call it for whatever you want to call it, but that was when conservatives decided to enact the Patriot Act, which set
That
in
was
motion,
an inside job. That's what I call it.
I'm not gonna go there.
Easy on that one. Easy on that one.
I'm trying to speak double speak here for obvious reasons, but anyways, the fact of the matter is that event basically was the trigger for what's currently happening right now. This is 20 plus years later, right? So it's all been in the plans, in the works, just been called different names over time. Now it just happens to be called the Great Reset.
Yeah, and look how the Patriot Act, exactly what Arnie's saying. Look how the Patriot Act is not patriotic at all. It's to control us. And look at how they keep putting it in place. They keep signing it off more and more. When it comes up to where it's supposed to be gone, they put it right back in place. And
yeah, but it was supposed to be temporary.
Right, and we're still under this War Powers Act, and that's how they're doing all these things, just like they did with the juice and the C word. That's how they're still pushing all this stuff out. These emergency acts and these war power acts, all this stuff keeps them in a panic state when it comes to how they can funnel money around and executive orders and what they can do, and it gives them more power. That's the problem. So,
by the way, just for the record, I do want to say this. I agree with the statement you made earlier. I'm not going to go into detail, but I agree with that wholeheartedly. And one day we'll have a discussion on why that happened.
That's a rumble. That's a rumble discussion, and I can tell you the details down to the thermite and the
yeah. Well,
I
think you may find that I'm just as well as informed as you are on this one.
Yeah. I do want to address one thing.
I'm excited to have the conversation.
Gerald, no, I don't think we're at the end stage either. It's a process.
Right. I agree with Gerald.
We're nowhere close.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, are you kidding me?
No.
If you think this is close to the end, you are dreaming.
Gerald.
This is just the very beginning.
Yeah, my analogies was they were pressing the button. Now, how long it takes the computer reboot, we don't know, and that could take a long time.
I do wholeheartedly believe that we're in the same pre-war one footing right now. When you look at the history of prior to World War One, it's so similar. It's sick.
It is. You're right.
You know what I mean? So in the immediate future, in the next 18 months, I think that's everything else seems to be a distractor and making it the topic of conversation. Meanwhile, they get you looking over here. Meanwhile, they're doing it over there. So right now they're making the banking system the big story of the day, which, don't get me wrong, it's a pretty serious thing because that controls everything on the board. But the truth of the matter is the alliances are now aligning themselves just like in those days, right? The geopolitical alliances around the world. Look at how it's all being staged right now.
Yep.
For sure.
But Arnie, this isn't new.
No.
This has been going on. This is this week's tidbit in the news. Last week it was something else. The week before that it was the
But they all
train
add,
fire.
they
The
all
week
add up to
before
the same
that, it
story,
was-
though.
It's all distractions.
Yeah.
The week before that it was Chinese balloons.
Yeah, and all this stuff
Uh,
about Russia is a resource war.
Robert and I have had this discussion many times. Like, what fantastical piece of garbage are they going to come out with tomorrow or next week to baffle people that we can't even fathom? And they're still being damn good at coming up with new ones every week.
Well, I can tell
Aren't they,
you. I
Robert?
can tell you one thing they came up with, to put the fear of God into a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure.
World War III is coming. Biggest lie
Yeah.
ever told.
Yeah, the war is on for your mind. It's not a war that's going to happen like a traditional war. The war is for your mind. And
Okay,
yeah,
guys,
exactly
let
what
me
Bearded
jump
Eagle
in here
said.
for 1 minute, guys. 1 minute. Pause. Hey, Hector, can I get you to jump off so I can bring Brian up, please?
Go ahead.
Yeah,
You
need
have to jump
guys.
off.
You have to jump off so I can bring Brian up.
All right.
6 on panel.
So the name Fried TV was because I told people years ago, and I lost a lot of so-called friends, to turn off the TV because it's brainwashing you. It's television. It's telling you a program. It's a program that's telling you a vision. It's lying to you. It's a magic trick, just like y'all were saying. It's a diversion. The balloons, magic
Well,
trick. All these things are just diversions, magic tricks.
To quote Styx, it's all a grand illusion.
Yeah, and think about how magic tricks work. Look at the pretty girl. Look at the pretty girl. Meanwhile, the guy's doing what he needs to do his magic trick.
Yeah,
That's
he's stealing
exactly
your
what's
wallet.
going on. Yep.
How you doing, Brian?
Oh, not too bad. I think I finished herding my cats here at work, and
Oh, okay. That's an interesting client or workforce, but all right.
oh yeah.
Are you still watching paint dry?
I will starting from now, but this first couple hours have been quite a nightmare.
Now he's going to find somebody to wash the paint off the herd of cats.
Paint fight. Paint fight.
All right, Hector. You have a good one, buddy. Take care, Hector.
Take care, Hector.
Later, WD-40.
The one thing, guys, and not that I disagree with anything people are saying, but I do have to warn again. We have to watch where we delve into. Unfortunately, that's not my consideration. If it was my rules, I think we all know where this would be.
You don't need to explain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
We
want
get
to
it.
make a correction that Brian was not hurting cats. He was herding them like a herd of cattle. So
Thanks, Brad.
somebody in the chat thought he was hurting cats. No, he was herding them.
Oh, I can see it now. Somebody just called RSPCA.
Yeah. No, we love cats.
Well, actually, I'm at a courthouse, so they're pretty strict on how you deal with cats. So.
How you heard the cats? So, anyways, Brian, I'm assuming you've been listening for a little bit. What's your you have any?
I was not able to listen very much because I had I had all these higher up people show up here.
Oh, fun,
See, oh yeah,
fun.
fun. So I don't know where we've been and where we're going. So
Well, we've been a lot of places and we've won a lot of places.
You check your bank balance today, there, Brian.
I'm not worried about my bank balance.
I did, Arnie.
You know, and I guess you know, outside of everything else that we have discussed when it comes to what people would do or how people are going to react or all these things, the one thing to remember is we're nothing more than the pawn in the game they're playing, and to think that we've not been predicted for would be very foolish.
I had a point I wanted to add to that before you even said that, Robert.
All right, go right ahead, bud. Go right ahead.
Everything is an illusion that they're putting in front of us. Everything is a deception. And their biggest deception was 3 years ago, you know, the event I'm referring to, and look how the entire world reacted. Now they know they can get people to do whatever they want by funneling it through mainstream media, and the masses will bend over and obey. That's all I have to say.
Yep, for the most part, I think you're absolutely correct. We happen to be the outliers.
And we found each other because of what happened in places like Ottawa, and being able to find each other on panels like this because of people like Fry and others that got groups of like-minded people together. So hopefully we can make a difference just having these discussions and having, what have we got, 26 people watching.
Yeah, well,
That's all we can hope for these days.
and Andy, I want to change one word that you said. We're not the outlier. We are the
Robert
target.
said that. That's not what he meant, Diego. We are the few that are seeing through their deception, is what Robert meant by outlier. Am I correct, Robert?
Yeah. But
we all went along with it as well, Diego, because we were basically forced with our hands tied.
And
Some of us to a greater degree than others. But we're the outliers that saw through their bullshit, because a lot of people still are not seeing through their bullshit.
So here, just to tap into what Andy's talking about. You say we got 28 people. Let's take a poll here. One that you agree with what we're talking about, maybe some details you don't, but overall the paradigm you agree with, or two you don't agree with. Let's see something here. Everybody that's in the chat, one or two.
Can you define what they're agreeing or disagreeing on?
The paradigm we're talking about. The paradigm we're talking about.
Okay.
Okay. So is it one or two?
Arnie, all you're going to get is ones.
Right.
No, I don't think you will.
I'm trying to make a point here. Okay. So the technology that we're sitting on right now is making sure that there's no twos in this audience, because they don't know about this thing going on right now. Right? They've created nothing but a world in the tech world. It's all echo chambers. We're not getting anybody that doesn't disagree with what we're talking about here. And they're not worried about us. If we were getting a lot of twos in there, we'd be shut down. For sure, we'd be shut down because we'd be over the target. We're influencing people that don't know any different.
Well, what you're saying, if we got a bunch of ones in the chat, we basically have an echo chamber, and we have a confirmation bias that's occurring. Or is everybody in the chat coming in here for a confirmation bias, or are you coming in here to learn something new? That's my question.
I can answer that question easily for you, Fry. Arnie is completely correct. Everybody that's in here right now feels exactly the same way we feel. This is, in effect, an echo chamber. This has been our problem all along. I started my channel trying to reach outside, and I have miserably failed. Now, that doesn't mean I haven't made a lot of friends in the process, but that also means that the only people I have met think exactly the way that I think. And I think this is true for almost everybody. And Robert, please correct me if I'm wrong here, that has started a channel thereafter. We just don't reach the right people. And I wish I had an answer to that, because that is the key. but I
The
don't.
technology is controlling that. That's my point.
Exactly. Yep. The algorithm
hang
will
on,
not push this.
Hang on a second. Somebody's reaching somebody because in Canada, there's only 24% of the population has gone, has been, got their third,
Juice. The
their third
juice.
juice. So somebody,
And to add to the question you were asking, Fryer, are we all on the same page? Pretty much. But I have learned so much listening to this panel tonight, stuff I was not aware of or had not researched. And I do every time there is a panel of people with like minds that are studying relevant information. If we don't get more people to join the group, at least the group that is here is going to be better educated.
Well, I think at the moment, and me and Diego were actually talking about this, the circle is expanding, albeit slowly, but it is. Now, whether or not that's going to be of any consequence in the future, who knows? But it doesn't mean that I'm going to stop what I'm doing.
That wasn't the point. That wasn't the point.
No. I understand that's not the point, Art.
Yeah.
But at this point in time, we are in an echo chamber. That's part of the problem.
Yeah, and if YouTube didn't censor, and this is the thing, YouTube wants to sell ads. This is not a panel that would sell a lot of ads because, you know, the things that I said specifically, and they're never going to push us to the top of the algorithm. So we're always going to be speaking to an echo chamber in a sense.
Oh, come on. Pfizer will sponsor anybody.
well, as Robert and I talked earlier about the percentage of people in the US that haven't gone above and beyond what was mandated. And it was a relatively low percent of the population.
Yeah, 16.
So somebody, so somebody's reaching somebody, and it's the silent people that are still not, have decided not to, who are still not speaking out. So somehow the information is getting out there, whether we're playing a part, hopefully we're playing a little part.
Well, yes, and I agree, Brian.
Brian, I applaud your optimism, and I do agree that, you know, maybe we are playing a small part. It's just not big enough. Sorry.
Yeah, and what I'm going to say is not to sound like the smartest guy in the room at all, but I'm just going to state some facts. What just happened over the last 3 years, if you participated in that system, says two things to me. Either you're not critically thinking or you can't help it and you have a low IQ. Those two things.
Wait a second, Fry. I take that as an insult.
I knew that was gonna stir up some stuff.
Because I was forced into a position where I didn't have an option.
I forgot about that. Yes. So you have three things. So
I-
if you're
I-
forced,
I-
forget about what I
think-
said.
You're right. Okay. I just wanted to clarify because I know a lot of people that were in my position.
And I take that back. I forgot about the force concept because I'm sitting here working from home.
Yeah.
So my bad.
All forgiven. All forgiven, sir.
I was going to add, so were my kids and grandkids to be able to work and go to school.
And that's what angers me when people are forced into it.
Yeah, and that's a discussion for a different panel too, which I will have in the future. I certainly will. I'm not afraid of it. But it all plays in together. And what I guess to expand on what Brian's saying, there is a not inconsequential part of the population who really are silent. Now, whether that's because of conditioning or fear or whatever, there's any number of reasons that you can put on that. I usually find the loudest voices not always to be the ones you should be listening to.
Robert, you can put fear on the top of your list with with a huge gap underneath, a long, huge gap underneath, and then whatever other reasons you can think of.
I think the biggest problem is complacency. People are comfortable where they are. It doesn't affect me much. I still have my government job. Uh, I can still go on my holiday. Oh well, things cost me a bit more, but oh well, la di da.
I don't agree with that because I spend
I have perfect proof of it, Brian. We had a death in the family, and Lori got together with all her siblings and step siblings. We got together for a lunch, and they hadn't been together in years. And half of them were on the side that, oh well, everything's fine. I got my 4 shots because I work for the government. They thought nothing of it.
Can I say
Just
something?
complacent, keep going through life.
Can I say something about fear real quick? Fear does 2 major things to a person. It paralyzes that person, and whoever's creating that narrative that causes the person to be afraid is controlling that person. So fear is very controlling as well. So usually the person that's telling you this boogeyman is over here is controlling you in some fashion. So the fear, like the television, everything on TV makes you afraid. If you watch the evening nightly news, you're going to be freaked out about everything. And that's a control mechanism. So if you get away from the fear, when you inform yourself, the fear goes away. Information fills up the fear. It will replace the fear. So if you get information about something, you're not afraid of it anymore. So anything that you're ignorant about, inform yourself about it and know that it's facts, and you will not be afraid about the snake or that spider that you're afraid to touch. Is it poisonous or not? When the fear goes away, you can handle it literally. I pick up snakes all the time because I'm not afraid of them because I know the ones that'll hurt you and the ones that won't. Same way with spiders. I kill black widows and I kill the poisonous snakes. So rarely do I ever have to kill a snake.
Well, and I'll agree with you guys. Fear is certainly a major proportion of many things. And a lot of people, truthfully, don't know how to or know where to look to even alleviate any of that. The other part of it is, I have to go with this, is apathy. It's the lack of looking until it's on their doorstep, literally. They're fine in their mind, even though with all these things going around. Well, it's we've been so conditioned to think that, well, this is just one more thing and it's going to go by, and I'll just keep moving on the way I've been. But it's a little chip at a time. One more little piece removed.
I just have to comment on AMZ Kingdom's last comment. That didn't happen.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah,
It was on the news, and all of a sudden, it became gospel. It was
What's
not.
that? What I missed?
I was trying to say other forces came into Ottawa to dispel the
military
convoy.
forces.
Those green troops were basically Quebec forces, Quebec provincial police.
Yeah. Yeah, and that the way that whole thing was portrayed was pretty disturbing, and that goes about the power of, in my opinion, propaganda. Unfortunately, that's another thing that we have to deal with, even when it comes to things that, shall we say, details that people disagree about. And even when it comes to the topic we've been talking about tonight, there's a lot of things that people take as a granted that a thought process is, when it may not necessarily be true. Because there's many ways that a lot of these things can play out in a lot of different people's minds. And that really is, as Diego, to use his analogy, part of the buckets. For some reason, we've been taught now that we can't stand together under a one idea. We have to have all or nothing. And unfortunately, and it doesn't matter which side of the political spectrum you fall upon, it's going to end up where we all are nothing more than useful pawns in a game that they're playing. And the infighting that we have, even in little communities, the online world here is a perfect example of that. The infighting is just atrocious over the stupidest and the dumbest of things. That's the first thing we have to get a grip on, is realizing we're not always going to agree on details. We're not going to agree on maybe major things too. But one thing we can agree upon, I would hope, is the fact that we are the ones that should be controlling the system, not the system controlling us. That was the way our systems and our constitutions and our Bill of Rights and in our case, our republic was stayed upon. And I know that Canada has their Bill of Rights and things like that. I'm not sure what it's called. Same thing with Australia, New Zealand, Germany, Europe, whatever. They all have those types of things too. But it's been reversed to think that it's a limitation upon the people and not a limitation upon the government. So when it comes to finances or mandates or many other things, that's the first paradigm that we have to change, is to realize that we are the ones that are supposed to be in control, not a select few.
But we got to go back to the school system. Our school system is based on, it's supposed to teach you things, but what it's doing is it's teaching the children what to think and not how to think. So there's a big difference.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not going to disagree with you on that at all. Our educational system sucks when it comes to public education, for sure.
UNESCO.
Can I interject on that one? Because my aunt was a teacher, and she retired 15 years before she needed to. She retired in like 78, 79, 80, in that realm. And she said the reason why I quit, I don't want to do this anymore, is because the mandates coming down from the top in the education leadership was she felt that she wasn't in the business of educating anymore. She was in the business of the indoctrination process. And kids, as a result, as she was telling me this 20 years ago, she was saying, I see it, that kids don't have a clue how to reason. They don't have a clue how to in education, they tell you how to deduct. They teach you how to, talk back, right? Without being punished. That was part of the growing up process, right? And nowadays, they're just taught to obey. They're taught that the government is God because they've removed God from the school system. I remember when I went to school, we did the Lord's Prayer and we sang God Save the Queen every morning at school.
And the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'm sure in the US that's what they did. Yeah. Yep. And nowadays that's frowned upon because the state is the almighty God now. And it's really, at the end of the day, that's the real problem here is we've gone from a society of God-fearing folk to basically the state, which is the typical communist state, is to eliminate, and most of the middle class used to reside in the middle class. We're church-going, God-fearing people, right?
Yep.
And over the last 10 years, that's disappeared. God is no longer, acceptable anymore, and anybody who talks about it is demonized. Our media does it. Our messaging does it. Every advertisement you see in a newspaper or in a magazine or whatever, it's all demonized. So that tells me that it's gone from a God-fearing to an atheist state, which is the typical communist regime. They've accomplished it. The vast majority of people don't believe in God anymore.
Well, see, that's where I have to jump in and saying there should not be. It should be a God-loving, not a God-fearing, and that's That's the issue I have about that.
In religious terms, not to interject you there, buddy, but in the religious terms, God fearing is not that word fear. I should fear God. God fearing is actually just like when we were talking earlier about the word great. God fearing was called respect, and respect meaning respect your neighbor, respect your community, respect along the way. Right? There's none of that anymore. Nobody respects anybody anymore.
I was going to add to that. We've lost religion notwithstanding. The very fact of people getting together on Sunday, going to church to meet with the neighbors, to meet with the same religious group, to have a meal together, to just be a community.
Mm-hmm.
That's all gone.
Yeah. And cities are
I
perfect
don't
for
know.
that.
I don't know. I've been here 32 years in this house. I don't know anyone 3 houses away from me.
No shit, eh?
If they don't come by, I don't see them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we all still went to the same church and went to the Sunday potluck dinners, you get to know your neighbors.
Yeah.
And that would lead to more of the I'll help you, you help me kind of situation. But that just doesn't exist anymore.
And hence why
everyone's too busy living their own life.
Okay, let me Aaron, go ahead and finish your saying, then I want to jump in on
hence basically the mandates. You know, remember, I don't know, in Canada they've arrested quite a few pastors for defying the odds. Why casinos and liquor stores were open, but places of worship and fellowship, which is absolute critical for mental health, the sense of community, that was destroyed.
Yeah,
right?
no, I agree
Because
with
that's
that.
where the power lies in the community. You said it, Andy.
Yes, they've tried to eliminate the community, people getting together as a community. Exactly,
and it starts with you.
Like I've said to Robert many times, and to Diego, when I started watching Ottawa, it was this overwhelming sense of relief that I wasn't the only one out there that felt lost. There were hundreds of thousands or millions of people that felt like me, that something had to be done. But there was nowhere on the internet to meet these people. It was not on mainstream media. Boom, all of a sudden it showed up, and people started going up on panels and having discussions and getting together in groups like this.
Yep, and it all came from UNESCO. Look it up. UNESCO stands for the United Nations Educational, Scientific, Culture Organization. And all these things that have branched out like Common Core, what Son Honey's talking about, have come from since 1949 is when they launched this thing. And it's to control the world. UNESCO controls all the curriculum and all the schools that your kids go to, that we went to. And it was not to educate us, it was to tell us what to think. Indoctrination and not creativity.
Okay, I want to address something when it comes to religion. I'm not the most religious person on this planet by any means. So to alleviate a little bit of that, Aaron, the problem with that is that very thing is used to divide, as Diego said, with buckets. And that's one thing that we need to remind ourselves of. I am most certainly of the mind that a lot of the points we've made are correct. We've lost community. We've lost our fellowship. We've lost the idea that we belong in a community of our neighbors and things like that. We are taught now, well, we aren't, but where individualism trumps everything else. And individualism, I don't mean as in rights, because individualistic rights are a thing and should be. But when it comes to communities and our whole society in general, the cohesive things that we've had are gone. We don't even have where the old men, we're like the old men that used to go down to the coffee shop and talk. It doesn't happen anymore. You can't even go to a club or anything else and have a meaningful conversation without one of the sticking points getting in the way and throwing everything out the window. We are so divided on so many different levels, be it, and religion being one of those. That's one of the ones that I think of the buckets that Diego missed is religion. Even if it's Protestant, Catholic, Mormon, whatever, there's division in that too.
Yeah, I didn't miss it, but you know me, I stay away from religion.
Yeah,
most of the
yeah.
time.
I try to too, just because it becomes a hot sticking point. And I don't,
Robert, I'm not the least bit religious either, but I think, and I don't think 90% of my neighbors that went to church every Sunday were either. They went there for the neighborhood community
well,
get
yeah.
together.
And I was getting at that. I was trying to get to Arn is that
I realize that, yeah.
it isn't just so much the religion as it is the community in general, where you have that feeling of being and knowing your neighbors and knowing the people that you're with and what it brings, where people
And
could
it's not,
talk about
and
things.
it's not that hard to do.
And
Drive.
they-
I don't know if your next neighbor is a mile away. Drive a mile away, and tell the neighbor, "Hey, I'm having a barbecue. It's going to be a potluck. I'm inviting all the neighbors. Bring whatever, and if you can't bring anything, so be it. Bring yourself, and let's have a good time."
Have you seen food prices? You can't afford to have a potluck anymore.
Yeah, well, you know,
I said that tongue in cheek because it's getting to be that point.
yeah, absolutely.
You can
Unfortunately,
barely afford to feed the family.
That's why fasting is really handy lately.
That's your shtick, Fry. You stick with that. You don't have to preach it to everyone every time you come on a panel.
Okay, the reason why I preach it, Andy, is because it saved my life, and I want to help save other people's lives.
That works for you.
It works for
That's
everybody.
fine. No, it doesn't.
yeah,
because you have no proof
Fry,
of
you're
that.
missing the point. Enough is enough. We've heard it.
And therein lies an example of exactly what I was just saying. We have to find that way to stay of one mind and community, no matter what the beliefs are.
Sorry, I didn't mean to sneeze on everybody. Jesus.
Oh, God.
Oh,
pass me a
now
Kleenex.
I've got
shit.
to see. Thanks a lot,
Yeah,
Arnie.
yeah. Okay, pass me the alcohol wipes, please. Come on. I heard you could catch it over the internet. But anyways, that is an example of even upon ourselves. We have been so conditioned to not stick to what we agree upon. And I'm not trying to offend anybody.
Well, you're going to offend some people. It's okay. It's okay to offend people.
No. What I wanted to understand is when you were talking about community and people getting together, just like we're doing here now, it's the consolidation and the fleshing out of those ideas that are going to serve us.
Mm.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Well, the consensus comes from debate.
Yes, and that's what I mean. That's what
Right.
I'm saying.
I like the concept of, and this was old school. I can't believe I'm saying this because I used to bitch out my family all the time for being so old school, but I'm older now and I get it. Just because I don't agree with somebody doesn't mean I have to hate them.
Correct.
You know?
Absolutely.
And that's what's going on nowadays. If I don't agree with someone with blue hair, for example, you know what I mean? Doesn't mean I hate them. You know?
Well, unfortunately, though, I think that's what's being taught in this day and age.
Yeah.
It
Herd
really
to your
is.
corner. Just herd over to your corner. That's your corner. That's your tribe.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Here's your little box. You
There you
stay
go.
with inside this.
Back to the buckets we go.
Yes,
Exactly.
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 I mean,
And-
just think about this for a second. I mean, this is an utopian idea, I know, and far-fetched and never going to happen. But what if we all eliminated all the buckets and put all the buckets in the middle class bucket and just shook it all around? You would instantly get rid of division of religion, race, and anything else.
Yeah, and I want to point out something. So I was basically told to shut up because I said fasting is my thing. That's a bunch of crap. I didn't come up with fasting. Okay. It wasn't my idea. I looked into it and it helps a lot of people around the world and it can help everybody here. So it's not my thing. It's a tool that we can use to improve our health. Is all I'm saying. And that's a prep. That's a thing that we can leverage ourselves against the monetary system. If you eat less, you have to buy less, you save money. You're more powerful. You're less vulnerable. You're not going to be in fear that there's not any food.
That's fine.
Fry, you're being a little oversensitive here. You know my idea about this, and you know how I live my life and how I eat. So it's not like we're not aligned on this. But
It's not
at
that I'm
some
being sensitive, but the people that are listening on the panel, they've never heard me talk about this. There's a lot of new people here. It's not, we're not completely in an echo chamber. I see new people in the chat that I've never seen before. So I want them to hear this. Fasting helps anybody in a lot of ways. That's all I'm saying.
and to put to that, Fry, I will agree with you on a point of that intermittent fasting certainly does change a person's biology. I have looked into that myself.
But it's not going to repair my physical disability.
No, it's not going to. It's not going to.
Which is
not
what
gonna do
you, what
magic.
you blatantly told me to my face. If I fast, all my ailments will go away.
I didn't say,
That's
I didn't say
bullshit.
that. I don't even know your
Yes,
ailments.
you did.
No, I did. I
Yes,
don't
you
even know
did
your
in so
ailments,
many
Andy. I'm
terms.
saying it will improve something in your body. Is all I'm saying.
So, anyways, let's move on from that. We've fleshed that out. Does anybody have anything to add when it comes back to the topic at hand, which was the financial system? We've really went out in the left field here.
Yeah, we kind of did, didn't we?
Yeah, I'm trying to move it back. Left turn, guys. We're doing a U-turn. Does anybody have anything to add or agree or disagree, or I should say disagree with what we've talked about? Bueller, anybody?
Let's just put it this way.
no disagreement to any of it.
I wish I could comment, but I missed so much of it that I don't know what was talked about or what wasn't.
Well,
I
it was
would just li- I
basically
would
rehash
I
of our
would-
stuff earlier. Go ahead,
I
Brad.
would just like to add one thing about the importance of keeping panels like this opened is as people are finding out the truth, they know there is a community that where they can come and know there's a lot more like-minded people out there.
Yeah, and I want to add to that, and I think Robert, you and I talked about this yesterday at some point. It is now the case, at least in my opinion, where we don't find the people; they're finding us,
Yes, I agree.
and that's a good thing, because
Well-
we have failed. I mean, I'm a prime example. We have failed miserably. I mean, miserably, to reach out to them, and that didn't work. But we've been persistent enough to stay on. So now that as people are waking up, one after another, they're coming on the panels and they're finding us. I find that extremely encouraging.
Yes, and
I want to add to that, Diego, because I completely agree with you. To go back to the dinner we had with Laurie's family, none of these people know any of this exists. They might go home on their computer and play video games, but they don't go out and look for any alternate news sources or discussion groups to find out what's actually happening in reality. They looked at me like I had a third arm sticking out of my forehead when I discussed what I sit home and do in the evening. Go on and discuss the situation with people. Really? Where would you go for that? Well, you go look at this panel or this panel or this panel. Really? Send me those links. So I did. So I think you've got a huge percentage of the population that doesn't know any of this group of like-minded people even exist, or these news agencies which are not recognized by the government or mainstream media even exist. As what's the word I'm trying to use here? Unfamiliar with computers as some people are. I don't consider myself that computer proficient. I'm certainly much better than most of the people out there.
Yeah. One thing there's two things I want to touch upon. One, Eric, you're correct. A lot of people don't have the time. They're running around like chickens with their head cut off. Now, to address something else, everybody on this panel is valuable. Their opinions are valuable. Their insights are valuable. We don't have to agree upon everything. But it's the fact that we can come here and do this that is the most valuable part. And
So can I ask what time for what? What Eric was saying, they don't have time for what?
A lot of people don't have time to be what we're doing right now. They're so busy running around trying to make ends meet that they don't have time to pay attention.
I would
Yeah,
say
no,
I
but
want to say something real quick. I would say the majority of these people that claim they don't have enough time will spend watching a lot of time watching TV or social media. They're feeding their brains with garbage.
I won't disagree.
Not necessarily, Cry. That was me 2 years ago. I was working 12 to 14 hours a day, doing nothing but work, sleep. When I had a day off, it was taking care of things around the house. I didn't go on the computer and play video games or do stupid shit on social media. I didn't have time for that until I retired.
Well, Andy, you're on this panel. You're on this panel. We know that you have critical thinking skills. We're talking about the masses that claim they don't have enough time. That's my point. And they're sitting there watching Netflix.
My point was I did not have the time. And Diego, for one, knows that completely because I explained my situation to him.
I do, and I want to add something to that. To those people that claim they don't have the time, well, guess what? If you don't make the time now, at the end, all you will have is time. That's going to be all you will have.
Prison Planet.
Well, anyway,
Well said.
Prison Planet.
And Andy,
yeah.
If you're angry with me, I apologize. I don't know your situation.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
So I'm sorry. I said it publicly.
That
Well,
must
thank you,
that
Fry.
must have hurt.
That's awesome. Fuck.
I feel the same
That's
way.
the first
Fry.
time that's happened on my panel.
I didn't mean to snap at you, but I've heard you say the same thing many times, and that it will fix any medical condition, and it works for you. It doesn't work for everyone.
And I know,
Is all I was trying to get across.
and I blanket that just so people will do it. Okay, so yeah, I'm doing my best to kind of over promote it, but it does help a little bit for a lot of people. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so let's move on from that. We've settled it.
Clip this. I said I'm sorry publicly.
Yeah, clip it and mark the calendar in red.
Put it on a
All right.
poster. Put it on a poster with an audio file on it.
Hey, you know when all the drama started, your number started going up. By the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Leads
Oh,
are
God, I don't wanna
leads,
go
right?
down that road.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cat fight. Those cats of Brian's that are covered in paint.
Yeah. For sure. Anyways, so if we don't have anything else to interject when it comes to the financial system, I'm going to cut this because this is the way I'm going to run my panels. That way we don't get off in the left field and I can leave my stuff up. Hopefully, I'm hoping this one passes the YouTube smell test. We did get a little close to the edge, I think.
Well, they didn't shut us down halfway through this time.
Well, that's true. We were still streaming, so that's definitely a plus.
I always
So,
I always dump off my live streams just because.
Yeah,
The watch hours you're going to get in the live. So if you can run longer in a live, that's where you're going to acquire your watch hours. Very, very few people watch 2-3 hour whatchamacallits. You know what I mean? So you're not gonna, there's no benefit to leaving a panel up on YouTube. So that's my suggestion.
well, actually, believe it or not, I've actually had people that watch them. Strangely enough, why I don't know, but they do. So figure that one
Hey,
out.
son, honey, what do you mean? Wow, really, Diego? What are you trying to tell me here? Oh, and Tonya, it's 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow.
Man, this weekend went real quick for me. I'm back to work on Friday, so I'll make an early appearance on yours tomorrow there, Diego.
Happy to have you.
I still haven't got a notification for you, Diego. I finally got one for Robert.
Well, I haven't set a timer for it yet, so that's why you haven't.
Oh, okay.
I'm still messing with that timer. That timer is all screwed up.
Excuse me.
Thank you, Tonya.
Yep. So, anyways, guys, I am gonna cut this off. I appreciate everybody that's been on panel. Everybody that's in chat. Eric, are you looking to fire one up? If so, let me know. I'll give him a second to answer.
Hey, we can all go over and get him a strike.
Eric, Bueller, Eric.
Eric's young. He's got years to recover.
Robert, the crazy crew is up if he doesn't respond.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wants to. He wants to go 8
People need to
hours.
know the pre-qualifications for that channel. If you're not crazy, don't bother.
Eric's going to do
Yeah,
a 50-hour
sure, Eric.
panel.
If you want to throw a panel up, by all means, post your link. And Diego, if you want to throw the Crazy Cruise link up, I will say the Crazy Crew does not allow political discussion. Just so anybody knows that's going to head over there.
I don't know if Robert saw your comment, Janice, but you basically and I are on exactly the same page. She's basically saying the same thing I was. She had her head in the sand until a few years ago, and when she finally woke up, it's like, wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, boys and girls, I'll be the first to leave and say goodbye to everybody, or see you later, whichever way you want to look at it. Thanks again,
Okay,
Robert,
Aaron.
for having me on here. Godspeed.
Yeah,
Hug the
thanks
ones
for
you
being
love,
on.
man. All right, take it easy.
Always good to see you, Arnie.
See you tomorrow.
Right,
honey.
Arnie.
Later, Arnie.
Ciao, ciao. How do I leave the panel on this? Oh, there we go. Okay.
No, this is Hotel California. You can check in, but you can never leave.
Yeah, I don't like Restream. I like the fact that it's got a dark background, but everything else is kind of disjointed.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that one, Fry. So Mechanic Eric's going to fire up a stream. So for anybody that wants to head over there, they most certainly can. And Grip's coming up.
You got him? Okay.
What's up, Dan? Dan,
You got your
are
mic
you there, Dan?
muted.
Hey, yeah, no, I'm aware I got my mic muted. Yeah, no, there is a benefit to leaving panels up for a very long period. It actually gives many of us a place to chill and relax. So yeah, there are actually benefits to leaving a panel open. It's a great thing to do because it pulls people of like-mindedness and like craziness together, so we can just chill together and have conversations without worrying about
Best,
things.
best line all night, like craziness.
Yep.
Dan, I am offended. Did you just call me crazy?
Of course, Diego.
Die
So anyways,
verrückte Deutsche.
the links are posted. Eric is going to fire up a panel at his place. Everybody going over, remember, Eric is not the one who started the political discussion, so be very aware of that. He does like discussion, but let's not hammer the guy. And as I said, the Crazy Crews, they're just general discussion, no politics, no religion. It's just there for general chat, and they're a hell of a really nice people, real good people.
Until Diego
So
got
everybody,
I was going to say if you could put up with Aussies and New Zealanders, you'll be fine.
Oh, there you go. That's all I wanted to say,
And,
guys. I'll leave now.
See you soon, man.
Fry, by all means, the next time you're up, don't feel that you can't post the links to your new channels and stuff. I would, wholeheartedly stand behind you on that one for sure.
All right, appreciate that.
Everybody else on the panel, thanks guys, I appreciate it. This is my second, what I consider successful panel that has not gone totally south. Everybody in the chat, thank you. I appreciate it too. I know there's a lot of ideas and different opinions. Eric says we can talk about anything, and that's for sure. He certainly does. So, all right, guys, I'm going to end this in 3, 2, 1.